Hey everyone, welcome back to the OnBase Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Moody, and today I'm very excited to be joined by Alexander DeMoulin to talk about smarter prospecting. Alexander, thanks for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Happy to be here.
Well, we've already talked about this. First, product plug the glasses and tell folks what you wish you had for the glasses. We have to get this out of the way.
I mean, seriously. So I have this fun new thing happening lately where whenever I look at a screen, my phone, my laptop, my monitor, I immediately start getting a migraine. These kind of help a little bit. It's been a bit of an occupational hazard, but I am looking for a sponsorship opportunity. These are like cheap Amazon, but I think there's an opportunity to get some like really cool branded Balenciaga, some sort of situation, because these might end up being a long-term thing. So we'll see if anyone's out there. We'll chat after.
We will tag them all in the comments. Maybe that's what we do. We just try to
Beautiful.
turn this into a B2C initiative.
100%.
All right. Well, I love it. Well, we'd like to start first by understanding your journey. What led you to what you're doing today?
Yeah, totally. This is my favorite story to tell. I am a failed salesperson. My first job out of college was in like university fundraising because it was similar to what I did in like as an intern in college. And then after a year of that, I got my first tech sales job. I was an AE for a company up in Seattle. I lasted 10 months. I was terrible at it. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I got fired for not even coming close to my quota. Honestly, they were really nice to keep me on for 10 months. Then I went and became an SDR. So I moved down and I was at a company for I think a teeny bit over a year, also in Seattle. And then I was terrible at that too. Like I had this deep fear of inconveniencing people, which is not easy when you're prospecting. And so I also got fired from that one and then got to move into my mom's unfinished basement in Portland, Oregon, my hometown. And then I ended up getting a kind of like a very ground floor temporary gig at a software company there called Smarsh, where they had kind of an abandoned Pardot instance. Like they wanted someone who's familiar with Salesforce to just come in and do like general ops work. Ended up staying there for almost 4 years and really realized, oh, I like marketing ops. I like sales ops. I like before then, like revenue operations hadn't really been a term that was known, but like this kind of work, I genuinely enjoy it. It also seemed like it was the work that everyone around me in actual marketing and sales, like strategy positions, did not want to do. So it felt safe. And that's definitely been the case. So yeah, after about 4 years, and I realized like, okay, even though I definitely can't do sales, I can do this. I moved down to San Francisco. Got my first job where I was the only and first marketing ops hire. And I was at a company called Circle CI for about 2.5 years where I learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes, really cut my teeth, became a people manager, learned how to like actually set a strategy and develop a point of view that mattered for the business. And then I moved here to Intercom. It'll be 4 years in September. So like almost 4 years now, where initially I led marketing ops here for about 2.5 years, I think. And then for the last little over a year, I've been a director of RevOps, but really I call myself a director of go-to-market ops because that's really my function. It's all the things that I used to own with marketing ops. But then I also own a sales ops function that focuses on new business and prospecting and outbounding with a real emphasis on all the technology that the growing landscape of technology and that supports those functions. So yeah, I absolutely love what I do. I frequently feel like I have no idea what I'm doing, but I think that's my favorite. Like honestly, that's my favorite story to tell because like you can truly fall down the stairs, and I think failing really quickly and learning like this is absolutely not what I'm good at, like this is where I'm very bad. It really forced me to figure out how to specialize and triangulate based on the skills and the things that I did have. And it's turned into this career that sometimes it feels like I'm falling up the stairs. I'm like, I don't know how this is happening, but I think like I think a lot of ops people are feeling this way because technology and like just the unsexy yet really important things of just making sure data is flowing from A to B and is what one team is putting in is understood by the other team is still so foundational. And so many businesses are really recognizing that like it's good when there's a good strategy behind it, but it's awful when you don't have that running well at all. So, yeah.
I love that journey. And you have your book title figured out too, From the Basement to Go-to-Market Ops. I think that would be a cool story.
Yeah. We have since actually renovated that basement into a full finished Airbnb apartment. If you are ever in Portland, you can stay in a beautiful neighborhood, Irvington. Yeah. So
pop the link in the comments.
There you go. Just kidding. We actually have a long-term tenant in it now.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, look, that's indicative of your success too, right? Like basement is now, it has its glow up, this
It
awesome
sure
place.
does.
Well, I love that. And you talked about the ability to fail. I think that's such an important thing that we all have, and embracing strengths. I know personally, I used to focus so much on the things I didn't do 10 out of 10 and think
Well, I
in my
still
head,
do
I have
that.
to get better. Yeah. And well, let's talk about something that a lot of people fail at. And that was a terrible podcast segue, but it's related
I love
because
it.
the list building process, what makes transforming that into a strategic priority successful for sales? Because a lot of
Yeah.
folks just start with, well, we want to close, Apple and Amazon and Adobe and
Yeah, join the
Oracle, and they
club.
just list the biggest accounts they can think of, and that becomes the list.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, go for it. Now, I think this is extremely important. I think this is such an important thing to talk about because the things that again, kind of like what I was talking about earlier, like the things that are like least sexy are what matter the most for a good list, because what's fundamental here, like this is a key process where marketing is involved in setting strategy and making decisions, and then handing this off to sales to execute. So that trust between the two teams becomes absolutely paramount. And so the reason why, like, I've done this multiple times in my career. I think I've tried to do some version of like, let's get good outbound lists ready for sales so they always have accounts to call. I think maybe 5 times, 3 times here at Intercom, and most times they've been an absolute failure. And it fundamentally came down to the fact that sales did not trust what we were sending over. They didn't feel as involved in the process. And the worst part about it is each time that we failed, that trust got lower and lower and lower, to the point where like that good faith where like we wanted to try an interactive campaign, some sort of a new function or initiative, sales was really hesitant, and for good reason, because they did not want to give us their time on something unless they felt that it would very clearly go towards them hitting their number. Yeah, I mean, without getting too much into like, maybe you need to do a segment or a transition. That's why I'm here, because I'm going to talk about like what I did this time around to try to really build back that trust through the process of building lists, and how that worked out for us.
Well, before we segue, we've got to dig the dagger a little deeper.
Okay.
The pain points there, right?
Yeah.
What were some of those lowest moments where you had that crisis and thinking, how are we going to do this, that drove the need to do the radical transformation?
So I think what has always impacted us that we've just never been able to fix at scale is, like, this might be unsurprising or unfamiliar for some people, but every single company I've ever worked for has a dirty Salesforce instance with a lot of dirty data, a lot of duplicate, a lot of unreliable enrichment. And so as a result, like, no matter what, if you identify the absolute best accounts, like say you've got the best intent data, you've got the best kind of like firmographic enrichment, like you've identified who's absolutely the best fit. The Achilles heel was really the fact that we could never 100% trust that what we were sending sales was truly an account that they could call. It was solving that unsexy yet extremely important like ROE standpoint of, can I trust that this account, there isn't a duplicate of it that has an open opportunity, or there isn't a duplicate of it with a slightly different website that an SDR is already working, or there isn't a duplicate of it with a very, very, very slightly different Clearbit domain that also has a, like, that just spun up a free trial. Like, I don't think sales trusted us to be able to encapsulate all the context, not about whether the account was good to work. Like, they could trust like firmographic information. I think what they couldn't trust is that we could actually operationalize these lists at scale, which for us meant ensuring that everything that we sent them was something that wouldn't be a waste of their time after they're a few days into prospecting and then realize, oh, this is an account I can't go after. So, like, I think that's where so many good intentions went to die. Like, every single time we tried to do this, we couldn't operationalize this. I think this is something that a lot of tools, a lot of intent tools and other tools that really help with account-based marketing and identifying and targeting the right accounts. Like, at the end of the day, everything has to be matched back to our own existing data. And no tool can clean that up. So this was always really difficult because cleaning this up at scale, or even getting to a place where we could understand, like, can we truly trust that like this account is a workable account? That took a really long time. And honestly, it was something where I had to get on systems roadmap. I had to make sure that we had the sales ops resources. I had to block out 2 weeks of my calendar to be in spreadsheet hell. It just wasn't tenable. And so I think that's fundamentally where we always fell flat. No matter, like, marketing could have done, and often it was something where I felt really bad because like marketing did everything they should do. Like, they would generate really good lists. We had some intent providers that I think actually did a great job of identifying the right accounts. But when it came back to like, okay, can sales actually take meaningful action against these accounts? The answer was always like, yeah, sort of. We hope so. And that's just not going to cut it.
Yeah, my brain was on we hope so. And then you said it. That's exactly what I was thinking. Hope is not a strategy, right?
No, it's not.
How did you leverage unique enrichment tools,
Yeah.
Clay, GenAI, to enhance
Yeah.
the accuracy and relevance to start to improve that data and ultimately build that trust?
Totally. So yeah, I'll set the stage. Developing a regular, reliable outbound pipeline engine has been a priority for us for the last couple of years. I think it's a priority that any successful SaaS business should have. Like, no matter how good your inbound or your PLG is, you should always make sure that like your top target accounts, like, you have some sort of an outbound program against them. So we've done multiple iterations of this at Intercom. Intercom's changed a lot in the last 4 years. And so it, like, Intercom's past, we tried this. And then most recently last fall, we did our first kind of like iteration of this where, we got that buy-in and sales said, we're going to, yep, we want to start outbounding. Like, will you help get us the lists? We'll make sure we're targeting based on X, Y, and Z. And so we did that. And September 1st, we assigned out the accounts. And then like a couple weeks later, like I got a Slack from someone high up being that this was Sunday morning, or Saturday morning. I got a Slack that was like, I'm hearing some really unfortunate, like really troubling things from the field about like the accounts. Like, I know we spent a lot of time here, like making sure these were good. What happened? And so immediate panic, because again, like my worst fears, which were like, are these actually good accounts? It felt like those were coming true. So, like, I think a lot of good things that come out of ops, like the initial impetus was like an uh-oh moment, like, oh, I really messed something up, or this absolutely failed. I need to get creative. I need to figure out a way that I can ultimately do this right. So there are two parts to this. Like, there's the actual tactical part, which is where Clay comes in. I think the beauty in Clay is that it truly allows a single person who, alone in their apartment over a weekend, stressed out, to ideate, to try things out, to create prototypes, to try to understand what could be possible at a really small scale, and then makes it really easy to scale that out. And so that's kind of the journey operationally for what we did with this specific program. More important, however, was the fact that for this list, even though sales was involved, we did not go nearly far enough to make sure that we were listening to them to understand, what does a good account look like? Like, rather than build, like, we've got excellent data scientists and folks internally at Intercom who've built some like really cool models and like can truly do some amazing work at predicting the likelihood. Like, propensity is something we can do really well here at Intercom. But what matters here, because of the history of all of that lost trust, all of us saying, trust us, this is going to be a good list. It's going to, oh, oops, sorry. Like, sales obviously was like, yeah, no, we don't trust you. So I had to make sure anything we were delivering them was optimized towards what they thought was a good account. So, like, even if they said something like, we only want to call companies that make peanut butter, and like we didn't have that propensity score, okay, you know what we needed? We needed to start that. We needed to make sure that sales could start actually outbounding so that we could generate that feedback. We could start seeing what's working, what's not working. We were at an impasse where, sales didn't want to call out on accounts that they didn't trust. So if they said, we only want to call accounts that have peanut butter on their website, great. What can I do to try to source as many accounts that are talking about peanut butter? Now, obviously, that's a ridiculous example, but I went to sales directly. I had multiple calls, worked with them on multiple fronts to just say, like, if you had a magic wand, if you were able to, like, if we could give you lookalikes of like your ideal accounts, what does that look like? What are the things that you're looking for? When you get a lead, when you get a new opportunity from an SDR, what are you doing to like for your own kind of spidey sense sanity check? Every salesperson kind of did something different. And so we aggregated those together and got folks to agree on two different sets of criteria, which I think is really important. The first is, okay, who should, like, if anyone meets any of these criteria, they're not a good fit. So you could be amazing, but sorry, you're located in a country that we just don't ever sell to successfully. So we're going to exclude you. We had to make sure we got that right. And that was established where we could say, like, okay, the accounts that truly aren't workable, we're going to make sure we don't assign you any of those. The second part was, okay, of the accounts that meet all that criteria, so like baseline, they're workable, how do we prioritize the ones and assign out the ones that most closely resemble what you sales have said are the best fits? And so that's where Clay came in and actually allowed us to realize a lot of those, like, well, if I had a magic wand, I would want X, I would want Y, I would want Z. And a lot of what sales told us, like, this was an iterative process. We assigned out the first list, then the next month we assigned out the second list after getting that feedback. A lot of those things that sales actually told us anecdotally, we have turned into programmatic enrichment. Like, we are always enriching accounts on an always on basis for these like wacky, unique things that you could never get from a legacy data provider. But it's because sales told us these are the things that we actually care about. These are the things we're looking for when we're scanning a website. And with a tool like Clay, we're actually able to go through and programmatically scrape a website, determine if, for example, something that's really great for us, if you have a login button, if you have a sign up now button, if you have some sort of a my account button, something that indicates there's another customer portal on the other side of the marketing website, you're going to be a good fit for us. That means that there's an avenue where people are interacting with you, they're creating support tickets. And so that, for example, how are you going to scale that out? How are you going to enrich 50,000 potential accounts to determine which ones have a login button? I mean, there are ways, but not ways that I could do alone in my apartment on a Saturday. But with Clay, I absolutely could.
Awesome. You answered my next question too.
I'm
Talking
sorry, I
about
keep doing that.
no, it was perfect. You nailed it about building trust. I mean, the first thing I was going to say, I was really hoping you would have said basement instead of apartment, just for the callback. You know, just my OCD was like, go basement, go basement.
No, sorry, I have a
but
beautiful
we didn't get
apartment
there.
now.
You moved out of the basement to an
I
apartment,
did.
so good on you. We'll let you have that win. Okay, I don't live in the basement anymore. The part that I love, though, the trust and feedback. One of my favorite customer interviews I've ever had here at DemandBase was Jody Lebo at Hexagon. And there was this quote. As soon as she said it, I wrote it down, put it on a slide, started sending it out to everyone. And it was, I don't ever want sales to come to me and say, why did you pick this account? And having those conversations is so important to hear that firsthand. No matter what you're doing with the tech, you have to hear it and act on it. And that was a great answer of how you did that. What were the biggest operational or technological challenges that you faced in doing that? So you hear the feedback, you're working to improve it. How did you address all of that feedback?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. I think the biggest thing is this is before we ended up doing like full scale programmatic enrichment using Clay as like the orchestrator and in some cases the source of a lot of the data that we did for accounts. A lot of this work that I did kind of prototyped that and then helped us identify what did we want to enrich on a regular basis. But I think again, it was solving those problems that weren't like it was fun and it was kind of easy in comparison to do things like write the query to figure out which accounts are like have these cool things or have X or have Y or have Z. I think the hardest part was once again making sure that anything that we assigned was actually workable. So I think historically this has been really difficult, at least for me as like a point and click operator who can barely do SQL without ChatGPT. Like it was always really hard to solve that main issue blocking the trust, which was like, can we ensure that like these accounts are callable? They don't have a previous existing relationship with Intercom that would prevent me from being able to reach out in terms of they're already self-serve. There's already an open opportunity. They recently churned. This might surprise you. We have a ton of duplicates. We have a ton of duplicates in our Salesforce account or in our Salesforce instance. Everyone does. Everyone does. I feel like a company of our size, if we had a perfectly clean Salesforce instance, it would mean that we were not great with allocating budget for headcount and we were spending too much money cleaning up Salesforce data rather than on more strategic initiatives. It's just par for the course. And solving all of our Salesforce data problems, specifically around duplicates, if that is necessary to assign out these accounts and to get a good list to sales, we're never going to get there. We're never going to get there. We're making changes, we're making improvements, but there will always be that level of unreliability, and there will never be such thing as perfect data in Salesforce. What we had to get to is managing the expectations with sales to say, yep, we've got dupes. They're in there. They're annoying. We're working on them. We've got bad data in Salesforce. We totally get it. But we can confirm that every account that we're assigning you, there isn't a mystery duplicate. Not only like this account is workable, there isn't a duplicate out there that isn't. And so that was something that I think was absolutely hardest to do with Clay. It's extremely difficult to do with any other provider. I haven't figured out a way to do this. It's essentially you can pull a report in Salesforce of good accounts, but how do you know that there isn't another one out there? And so that's something that I'm actually most proud of. It's again something that's not as like glamorous as some of the other things, but it's a series of SOQL queries where essentially we're saying we have Clearbit. Clearbit's kind of our source of truth for like what is a company. And one thing I like about Clearbit is that it'll enrich an account down to just its simple domain. So for Intercom, for example, you could have intercom.com or intercom.ai or intercom.co.uk or some really long URL and have all that in the website field. Clearbit enrichment will run and return just the simple domain. For better or for worse, it's not perfect. That's kind of what we use to identify a unique company. So what I did was just create like 6 columns in this Clay table that like pinged Salesforce to look for any account with the same Clearbit domain as the account in this list that I think might be a good fit for sales. Do any accounts with the same Clearbit domain have an open opportunity? Are they currently paying us self-serve revenue? Are they currently paying us contracted ARR? Have they recently churned in the last 90 days? Do they already have a sales strategy assigned, which means that they're an account that we're already focused on for some sort of reason? Just basic. Oh, and then finally, has there been activity in the last 60 days? The most basic of things, but that's something that we actually got very right. Like, and I'd say like around 95% of the accounts that we assigned out met all that criteria. There's always going to be the mysteries. There's always going to be the weird ones in there, but that was huge. I'm most proud of that because I think that was quintessential. That was absolutely necessary for sales to make that for sales to have that initial willingness to start reaching out to these accounts. They were still skeptical, as they very well should be. So I think they went to a lot of these accounts and did their initial like, okay, I got this account. Let me just check. Let me try to find in Salesforce, is there another one? Is this truly one? And I think they started to realize, okay, I can start to reach out to these.
That's awesome. I love it. It's such a great example. It's very specific, which I love. What were your favorite examples of the benefits that came from it? It could be metrics, it could be stories, it could even be quotes from sellers. What stood out to you?
Yeah, I think I don't think I've ever had a salesperson ever tell me, this is a really good list. Thank you for sending it to me. I can't wait to hold Outbound to it, because obviously, I mean, from my like fired salesperson self, I'm like, no one wants to cold Outbound to anyone, no matter how good the list is, right? But I started to get those comments, and like I mentioned, this was iterative. Like sometimes, like we have to address the fact that like our TAM is limited. And, the accounts that look a lot like the accounts that we've always sold to, there just aren't that many of them, especially kind of post 2022. A lot of acquisitions have happened. A lot of contractions happened in the SaaS space. So like in order to outbound, like we're going to start pushing the limits of that and start outbounding into some accounts that might not look exactly like the customer profiles that we have from, some of our existing customers. The best part has just been that anecdotal feedback that like mostly the best part for me, for my ego and just for my sense of relief, was that like, we did it. We were actually able to solve this problem that I think at the back of my mind, I always thought like, we're never going to be able to do this. Like this is just always going to be a thing. And then that trust will never be able to be built back. What I think is much more important is like at a broader scale, I think this was really important for just that general sense of trust between sales and ops, like my function, and also between sales and marketing. Because in order for, like, this better than anyone working at a company like Demandbase, like in order for any sort of account-based marketing or really just good marketing to be successful, sales and marketing absolutely need to be in lockstep. They need to be understanding the strategy, their part in it. It's a shared goal. When that trust isn't there, it is next to impossible to get any sort of true collaborative initiative like this off the ground, especially something like a wide scale outbound program like this. So because we were able to get over that initial hump of like bad data, we were able to understand, what does it mean when you say bad data? Do you mean like genuinely like, I can't call this account, or like the information on this account is wrong, or there are like this is not an account that like fits what we should be calling. Like those are kind of the three different things that bad data can mean. We didn't think this was going to solve the problem. We just needed to get this out of the way so we could figure out, is there something else that's like blocking Outbound from being successful? Because right now it's just bad data. That's all we're hearing. And so as we were able to start solving that bad data problem, or at least solving parts of it, we could start to get that feedback on other things like, oh, like this messaging is not landing, or like these verticals, like we really need more support from product marketing, or like more collateral, or maybe we should roll back on this. Or even some circumstances where sales was more than willing to be like, we thought this would be a good type of account to go after. We aren't seeing success, so let's no longer focus on these. Let's filter these out and instead focus on X, Y, and Z. So it was by no means perfect. This is still not perfect. Like we just recently assigned out all the accounts for Q2, and we've got vibrant and voluminous feedback. But what we have is that trust both ways, where we feel like we can safely call out what's working, what's not working. And that's not just one-sided. It's not even bi-directional. It's like multi-directional. Like marketing's involved, sales is involved, ops is involved. We're getting our data science teams involved to see like, how can we start to tweak scores? And it means that like sales is able to give us that really good feedback on what works, what do they want to do. And we're also able to give them feedback to be like, okay, we gave you the accounts that you said were good, and we're not seeing activity. What happened? So what else is blocking? Are there sometimes it's just like, I had too many inbound deals that I had to focus on. Okay, that's a good problem to have, but maybe we'll take a look at that. But other times, like accountability needs to go both ways. If we're investing in this kind of a program, we want to make sure that everyone's on board. Again, none of that would have been possible had we not just come back to basics and really indexed on that first, or well, I guess that second list after the first one that really flopped, to see like, a good account is an account that in your eyes as a salesperson, you think is good. Because just we're trying to solve what will get you to start outbounding. Once we solve that, that'll open the door where, as we've discovered, there are plenty of other problems, plenty of other reasons why outbound, might not be as effective. And so we've got plenty of job security, plenty of other problems to solve. But with this bad data mountain and this lack of trust in the way, we couldn't even get close to those.
Yeah, that is such a good example. And you've hit on failures, you've hit on flops. We've both been fired from jobs. Most people listening have. No shame in that. It happens,
Totally normal.
right?
Yeah.
What's a business risk that you took that didn't work? And what were your learnings from it?
Yeah, a business risk that I took here at Intercom. I mean, I think I don't know how much of a cop-out this answer is, but I think I've often been too afraid to take really risky bets. And that in and of itself has been something where I've really prevented myself from being able to do something like what I did here, where I did kind of take a risk. I was like, this process that we like all collaborated on to create a list of accounts that ended up failing, I kind of just like took this on my own, and I was like, let's try this. Let's move forward with this. I would say in the past, I've been too afraid to challenge when I thought something wasn't going to work. So I think in some of these past iterations of like this mass outbound assignment, there have been times where I thought like, I don't think these are good accounts, or I don't think these are the right data sources, or like, I think we're sending something over to sales that isn't going to work out. But I felt like, okay, there's already sunk cost. This is what everyone else feels like is the right approach. So I said nothing. And I think like I supported those. I did those list imports. I assigned out those accounts and those contacts. So I don't know if that really answers your question. It's not so much a risk, but it's more like my unwillingness to take risks, I think absolutely has cost the business.
That was a great answer. And Alexander, you have made it to the lightning round. We have a couple quick hitters. So these are really fast. Keep us on schedule. The first, what is the single biggest challenge in B2B sales?
Oh my God. This is coming from me as an operator. I mean, like personally, sales is really, really hard and I don't know how to do it. So that's the biggest challenge. But we've already talked about that. For me, I think it's like I'm still hammering the point home. Like there's a lot of AI noise. There's a lot of like potential paradigm shifts and a lot of like potential FOMO that folks have. I still think the biggest challenges are the same challenges that we've always had, which come down to how do we get the right information in front of the right person at the right time. AI can help us get the right information in front of the right person at the right time. We're starting to see some real successes with it, but still the biggest challenge is making sure we understand what is the right information. It all comes down to, the garbage in, garbage out philosophy. Like, I think we're still really struggling to serve our salespeople in like one of the number one ways that we need to serve them as ops people, which is making sure they have everything they need at their fingertips so that they can be as successful as possible. The technology and the ability out there is insane now. Like things that you can do, things that you can do instantly, things that a single person can set up, a single operator. But I think at the end of the day, if a salesperson doesn't find that information useful or the source data just, you haven't done the unsexy yet necessary work to make sure that that is clean and in a good state, you're still going to once again risk losing that trust, risk sending a bunch of really cool signals that sales doesn't trust, risk saying like, look at all this different intent that's basically just noise. Because like what you really need is someone to sit down and ask you what really matters. Can we isolate this to the top 3 or top 5? So I think this is just once again a perennial problem. I'm looking at this from a very myopic ops lens, but I think that the potential is greater, but the blockers are still the same.
Love it. What are your favorite tools or technology? You've hit on a few already.
Totally, totally. I mean, like, I am very big on Clay. I think, like, as I've mentioned here, I will say like a little bit about Clay. Like, it takes a while to get used to. So if you're out there and you're like, you've gotten access to it, you have a free version, or your company just acquired it, and you're like, what do I do here? Like, I was in the same boat. I was skeptical, and I just had to spend time playing around. But other than that, I think my favorite thing about Clay is that like I got into ops because I find it creative. I find it fun. It's problem solving. And I think for a while, I felt like I was kind of getting away from that. Like Clay allows a single operator to go in and test things out, play around, have fun. Like I said, prototype some stuff, get wacky. But then actually, some of that might turn into, oh, this is valuable information that I'm going to hand off to our systems team to make sure we're enriching at scale. Clay is absolutely huge. Other than that, I would say just like any sort of AI web scraping is extremely important. Like any sort of just Gen AI, I know that is probably a cop out answer because to be honest, my philosophy around tools is there are usually way too many. We're usually paying too much for tools that aren't providing nearly enough value. I am really big on understanding like with a few simple like functionalities and like a really good clean Snowflake database that has everything that we absolutely need. How much can we do with very little? So I think like for us, the ability to scrape websites with a prompt and the ability to just overall generate account information with a prompt. So a lot of that isn't like you can't buy this off the shelf, but I think a lot of the tools out there, you can't buy their value off the shelf. Again, I'm an operator, so I'm looking at everything with like, what do we need to have in place to ensure something like this is successful? So I take that approach. That's why like I love Claygent, which is Clay's AI web scraper. We're able to like, hey, does this website say the word peanut butter? Great, then they're a good account. Like never been able to do that at scale before. But also internally, like thinking through things like, okay, we've got an awesome data infrastructure and data engineering team that has like all this product usage and like basically full 360 view of anything we'd want for a customer or a trial and prospect. How can we just simply consolidate that and immediately create like succinct call prep for every single one of our relationship managers or like recent news? So like what is the tool that we would use? I don't know. One of the GPTs, probably something internally, but that's what I'm most excited about. Like this new functionality allows us to do so much more with what we have and not need, a different tool for everything.
Awesome. We're going to close right on time. So this was 30 seconds or less. We call it good reads, but it could be book, blog, newsletter, podcast. What
Yeah.
stands out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say my favorite is probably Kyle Poyar's blog, just because it's very down to earth. It gives me information that's useful, and I think it does the best to just help me understand that, like I'm working for Intercom, which is I'll pat us on the back, like we're a successful AI company, and we are figuring this out. Like the pricing model is new, like the go to market is new, and we're kind of trying to benchmark with each other to understand what's the right way to do this. So I believe it's called Growth Unhinged. I might need to fact check that, but I found that one to be like a very useful, like succinct piece of our newsletter that gets me like, oh, that's interesting, or like I've got some ideas from that without being overwhelming, without trying to sell me anything, without being too abstract.
Awesome. We have one left. Most important one of all, Alexander. How can everyone get in touch with you after this episode?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not really on social media. I don't have a presence on X, but please find me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn handle is linkedin.com/n/A DeMoulin, my last name, ADEMOULIN.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely.